It's June 7th, 2020, and this is an update of the wildflower garden. So I've been doing this for several years now. I think this is going into my 5th year, and this was all grass when I moved here. You can see it's a lot more than grass. Well, the trees were here. This wasn't here. This shrub was here. It was smaller. That big tree was there, but everything else was grass. So I've done quite a bit to improve it, and I like to take these videos as kind of an update. We've got lantana and larkspur over here. Those are coming back year after year. Fantastic. The larkspur is the second year it's come back, and it's getting bigger. Hopefully it gets bigger the next year. Got a couple plumbagos here. They sure do love the morning sun, and then they're just taking off. This is standing cypress. Really, really love this thing. It takes 3 years for this to grow. Hummingbirds just absolutely love it. Deer, by the way, deer sleep in my yard, so I hear a lot of people say that you can't garden with deer around. But just take a look at that, and just take a look at this one view. You can see this is beautiful. Blue bonnets back here, Mexican hat, and Coreopsis, Salvia gregii, Mystic Spire sage, Jerusalem sage, Flame Macranthus, Pride of Barbados, Esperanza. The list goes on and on of stuff that you can have that you don't want to fight the deer. You just have stuff that they won't eat. I do love this Yucca rostrata here. The Yucca rostrata is awesome. Just got done blooming, and this particular plant requires no care. I planted it a couple days before Hurricane Harvey, and we got like 18 inches of rain, or just some silly amount of rain from Hurricane Harvey, and I haven't had to water it since. I really like this because I love using beneficial insects, and you can kind of see a little divot right there. That is an antlion hill right there. I don't grow them, but I give areas for antlions. I import sand and give them areas to grow, so that's kind of cool. Mystic Spire sage, I love this. One of my favorite, deer resistant, requires no care. I mean, I water it. Like if it hasn't rained for 30 days, then yeah, I'll come out here and I'll give this water. But when I'm talking water, I give it like 30 seconds of water. This blooms can until can't, from on until off. It makes a fantastic foil because of the green and the purple. So it's just great in the background. This is Jerusalem sage, one of my favorite flowers. The actual structure of the flower is just beautiful. It's kind of a fuzzy leaf, so I couldn't use this in Houston, just here in Austin. I really do love the structure of the flower and how often it blooms. The leaves kind of smell like soap. It's interesting. This is Salvia gregii. This is a favorite. Blooms, on till off. I'm using Salvia gregii to hold down the border. These are only second-year plants here, so they're kind of small. You can see this one here especially. Looks like a first-year plant. He's just having a hard time. But the rest of these guys are coming along. They look like second-year plants. And I'm going to have more. There's going to be another row. I grew some cuttings this year, the Salvia gregii cuttings. And this right here looks a lot like the Salvia gregii, but it's actually Flame Macranthus, one of the hummingbird's favorite plants. And that's why I have it right in the middle of my garden. I have about 8 of them here, and I love watching the hummingbirds come right to it. Of all of the things that I have here, when I'm sitting out here working, this is what they come to first, Flame Macranthus. Salvia gregii continuing up the border. And then Texas sage. Love the Texas sage. This is one of my favorite plants. So I like it so much that I have different cultivars all over the yard. Back there and over here, there's a Texas sage garden, actually, my favorites right there. This is a green cloud. It does bloom quite a bit, and it gets big. If you like the blooms, it really blooms, but it's green. I like the silver Texas sage, and so for me, this one really doesn't do it, to be honest with you. I might put 2 more Texas sages right here, silver, just to kind of offset it, because I really, really do like the silver of the El Dorado Texas sage. It's a cenizo, and it's El Dorado. Over here, you can see Mexican bush sage. You can kind of see it goes right out the border and then goes right over there. So these are all first years. They're just completing their first year. This will be their second summer for all these guys here. And so, they look like second-year plants, whatever. It's a second-year garden. Eventually, this will be just overflowing. This is what it looks like when it's, several years old down there. And this is what a second-year plant looks like. So they'll grow. This is a flowery senna, and the flowery senna is just a shrubby thing that has lots of blooms on it. This is the 4th year for this thing. I've really been on and off with this guy, but he's finally coming through. You can see all the blooms. It is supposed to look like a big puff of yellow, like everything's supposed to be yellow during the summer, not from leaves, but from flowers, these little yellow flowers. And it's been far from impressive. However, this is a small tree, and so it takes time to establish. This is, like I said, its 3rd year here, and if it doesn't have an impressive showing this year, then it's going to cut out. But so far, so good. It looks really good so far. Also under here, I do love antlions. We were mentioning that earlier. I grab all the antlions from other parts of the yard, and I brought them here. And so I figured this would be a good place. I always have ants. There's always ant beds around here. And so I figured this would be a good place for antlions. And you can see all those little divots. Those are ant lions. And if an ant gets in there, a small enough ant, then it can't get out, and the ant lion will eat it. And there'll actually sometimes be 2 or 3 ant lions in there at the same time. Think of the scene in Star Wars where the pit monster is about to eat Luke Skywalker, and he's coming up and saves the day, uses the Force, gets his lightsaber. That's what these guys are to ants. Pretty crazy. Flame acanthus, cool little dragonfly there. That's a big dragonfly right there. These are native petunias. I let the native petunias grow because they look kind of cool. They have the right color combo that I want here, purple and yellow, and they require no care. So what I do is I pull them up from everywhere else in the yard, and I throw them into a pile right here. And they are so hardy that eventually there'll be like 9 or 10 of them coming up there. They're just getting started this year. This is white mist flower, or also called, I think, a shrubby bone set, I think is what it's called. And the shrubby bone set is going to get pretty big. It's got a little bit of room here before we hit the dwarf palmetto. So you can kind of see the view from here now. This used to be all grass, right? Now it's stray cat in the background. And now it's all plants and a nice path. Dwarf palmetto here. We're going to put 2 more dwarf palmettos here. And got a... this is a grave to our dogs. We have 1 dog here now, but we're eventually going to put all of our dogs cremated here in this spot. And so that's the reason I'm going to put the dwarf palmettos here. Most people like those. They're super expensive plants in terms of the value that they bring. So they're very slow growing. So I'm going to plant kind of a bunch of them here. And they look very picturesque when they grow together in just a few years. So I don't think anyone would move them. But anyway, this is a Monterey oak, also called a Mexican white oak. And that's the new tree that I planted right next to the grave, which is right there. This is a really cool plant, black and blue sage. Just a really cool color. See the really cool color there? It is a cultivar of a majestic sage, but you can't get a majestic sage to turn that color from seed. So I bought, I don't know, I think 2 of them, and I've just taken cultivars from those. Over here, the side yard, we've got chili patines. This is a chili patine garden. You'll notice there's all shade over here, right? How do you grow stuff in the shade? Well, I wanted to grow more food, and I know that I can put this in the shade, and it will grow. Check this out. There's a bunch of chili patines over here. Look at that. You see how much shade is over here? You see how much dark it got? Man, these things barely get any sun. They get that kind of sun, the filtered light, all day long, and then it gets cut off at like 2. So they get no sun, and I get a full crop of peppers. There's a couple little guys here. That's a cutting. That's a cutting. There's no one over there. It's cutting. It's doing pretty well. The rest of these are established. There's 7 or 8 here. And also growing some mountain laurels here. You can see the screen here has died, and now I can see all my neighbors over there. There's no fence. So I want to put up some sort of visual screen, and so I've got some mountain laurel started. These are really small. 3 to 5 years, they'll be big enough, and you won't see anything back there. Maybe closer to 5 years. This is an American beautyberry. You can see the white little diminutive flowers. This is really late blooming for this. It usually blooms only in the spring, but super late blooming, but whatever. This will, I've seen them as tall as 10 feet tall. It'll get pretty big. And it produces beautiful berries in the fall. Nice, beautiful purple berries. This is a Texas Betony. And I have the Texas Betony only for one reason. I don't even really like the way it looks. It doesn't smell that awesome. I mean, it's not even that prolific. See, I've got several of them over here. That's just one of them over there. I've got several of them over here, like 5 to 6 of them over here. Look, they're not that awesome looking. I mean, they don't look that fantastic, right? The Texas Betony is bulletproof. It's really hard to kill this stuff. And hummingbird scouts look for these flowers. So when the very first hummingbirds are coming through the area, they're looking for Texas Betony, evidently. So that's the reason I have it here. Here's something that's not really working, because not everything works. I'm trying to produce it again, add to the visual screen. This is Eve's necklace. This thing has been here for 3 years, and it is hip height. I mean, it's put on a lot of growth this year, so I'm going to leave this one. I mean, my gosh, it's growing so slow. I want something in a screen to grow in like 3 to 5 years. That's 3 years. It's got nothing on it. Definitely not screen potential. I mean, it might screen a walking stick. Look, here's the other one. This thing is like, you can barely distinguish it from the grass. It's not that much bigger from when I bought it. So I'm going to dig up this thing and put it over here. And we're going to put something else here. I need a fast-growing shrub right here. And I also need a fast-growing shrub in the middle there. So we're going to have to do something different. Back to the front walkway. Succulents and lamb's ear, kind of holding down the border here. I really like the transition. The lamb's ear is super fuzzy, super delicate. It's a great way to get kids into the garden. If you ever want to get a kid interested in gardening or interested in a plant, just hand them some lamb's ear, and it feels like a lamb's ear, hence the name. Really cool. This is a Pride of Barbados, and it is paired with my favorite color combination of the summer, which is a Pride of Barbados and Esperanza together. These things it's just beautiful. They just look great. Oh, it's kind of hard to see. Here, let's get in there. You can really see them now. Just a great color combination. The leaves kind of go together well, and the flowers go together well, and they're kind of about the same height. They the same water requirements and everything. Require no water. This is more Mexican mint marigold here, and plumbago back there. Plumbago's holding down the underside because it won't get that big, especially not as big. It won't outcompete these guys, but it sure likes the filtered light that they provide. More plumbago. This Esperanza, these two Esperanzas are misfits. This one's super slow growing. This one has never bloomed. It's the 3rd year for this Esperanza. For 2 years, it hasn't bloomed. Look, it's still not blooming. The other one is in full bloom. This one hasn't even put on a flower yet. If this one doesn't bloom this year, I guess I'm going to have to get rid of it. But it got huge last year, like 14 feet tall. Didn't bloom. It's got to have access to nitrogen down there somewhere. So I'm sure it's got too much nitrogen. It's planted in somehow. What else we got? Over this direction, we have some garlic chives and tropical sage. Tropical sage is really spotty over here. I was hoping it would do better, but it really doesn't like Austin. It's just not enough water. In Houston, the tropical sage does excellent. It overruns things, but in Austin, not so much. You can see this is the patch. This has been here for like 4 years, and it's barely at all anything. So, yeah. In Houston, it would have taken over this whole garden in 4 years. So this is oxblood lilies. They're obviously not there right now, but they will come back. That's the reason they're marked with stones. This is marked with stones here because it is the milkweed. I didn't want milkweed up front. It's a butterfly attractant, and it gets eaten, right? So you can see they're not very thick. That's a 4-year-old plant. It's like a stick. Milkweed is very frustrating in this part of the world. Very challenging to get it growing and keep it growing. And so this is my milkweed bed. I've planted 4,000 seeds right here, and I've got 1 to come up. So it's pretty pathetic. This is Greg's Mistflower, and Greg's Mistflower should be called butterfly crack. Butterflies are on this all day long, 24/7. You can come out here and find a butterfly or a moth if you walk through there. It is crazy. I planted it right here so that Every day my girls walk out, there'll be some butterflies here. I've got a bigger patch, and the butterflies really prefer that patch, but they like this one too. This is a sweet almond verbena, and I purposefully planted it too close to the edge. I wanted to kind of hedge it up. It has very diminutive flowers, but they really pack a punch in terms of scent. The sweet almond verbena is fantastic for providing scents, fragrance to the garden. Over here we've got succulents. Succulent garden looks pretty good. I've got several videos of the succulent garden, so I'm not going to belabor this point. These are some that I pulled up. I mean, there's just so many succulents. Those are some that I pulled up. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. This is bamboo muley, and down here is a native Texas poinsettia. I really like the native Texas poinsettia. The bamboo muley kind of adds a flowy structure to this very rigid line here. It had Yopons and Japanese stuff and the hard brick, and I wanted something soft. So this is definitely soft and flowy. You can actually see it moving in the wind right now. Hardly any wind will start moving it, and so it's pretty cool. You would think it attracts snakes, and all the years we've had it, I've only ever found one snake around there, and he wasn't in there. He was around, he was close to it, but not in there. And I have to go back here to get my hose, so I look in the back of it all the time. I look underneath there, and I never see him, so I don't know. What else we got here? Wavy scaly cloak fern. This guy's got to get moved. I mean, he's doing okay there, but he's definitely not thriving. So going to give him more water and going to move him to the back. And he's going to get overflow from the hydroponics. I believe that's how we're going to hook him up. That's all to show right there. So I created this new hardscape here, hardscape there, and hardscape here. I was unable to block this right here, so I had to make two different areas. This is the drainage area. You can kind of see the water all goes right there. You can see where it goes right there. So I had to keep everything open there so it could drain, and actually it's kind of filled in, so I need to sort of, I don't know, dig it out or dredge it out, or I need to do something because it's filling in with silt, which is going to push the water somewhere else. And the water has traditionally gone down there and then settled into these trees. So when we have a nice big thunderstorm, these trees get watered nicely. This is a sweet almond verbena, great scent again, and it loves it in this area. Man, it really loves this spot. It gives, like 2/3 day sun. And then here's several more over here. There's a crepe myrtle I'm trying to kill. It's never done well, so going to try and kill it and get rid of it. And then several more sweet almond verbenas over here. Just smell fantastic when you get out of the car and you walk up to the front. This is I was going to say phlox, but it's not a phlox. It's a yarrow. I don't think it likes it this shady. I had seen it planted in extreme shade and it was really flowering and doing well. But I don't think it likes this much shade. So I'm going to take that and move it up here to this planter right here. So the yarrow will be right up front greeting people. Kind of nice. This is a canyon plant. It's a Salvia microphala hot lips. You can see the mountain laurel behind it. More Salvia microphala and mountain laurels there. Kind of creating a nice little look. I got to trim back the mountain laurel. More Salvia microphala, Texas sage. And then every time I come by this willow, this Mexican willow, I just love the scent. It's a flowering tree, very ornamental. See the flower there? And this is only the second year for this tree, so it will get big. It's going into its third year, actually. I planted it in the summer 2 years ago, so it's going into its kind of second and a half summer. But you can really smell it. I really like the smell of that. You can kind of see the red and white, red and white, red and white Texas sage. So this is a Silverado Texas sage. This is an Eldorado. And you notice the Eldorado is more silver than the Silverado. When I was looking for super silver sages, Texas sages, super silver cenizo, this is the one that I found worked best here. So I took cuttings. I've got a lot of cuttings. I took a couple to Houston. I put a couple in the other garden over there, and I put 4 right here to match this guy. Now, this guy will look a little out of place because these are going to be much more silver than him, but there's going to be 4 of them, so I think he'll just kind of blend into the background. And I think they're really going to fill in this bed nicely right underneath this Mexican willow, which should get very tall. You can kind of see that's nice. I mean, that just looks exactly what I wanted, man. Flower, 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 flower. Great. This is Esperanza. So it's really impossible to mow this area. I literally have to bring the weed eater out here. You can see this area over here. I can't mow it. It's too steep. If I go sideways, I did tip. So I have to bring the weed eater out here. Well, I've been trying to find wildflowers that would grow over there, but I've got some stuff in mind, but I've been using some other stuff. Well, this works. Obviously the Esperanza is killing it. There's several Esperanzas here. You can see those big holes with the Esperanza. It's on the side of a hill, right? And so it's really challenging to water these. You don't have to give them a lot of water, but you do have to give them enough water to get started, right? Like you have to keep them moist enough to get started. And so the Esperanza, if there's ever a thunderstorm or something, they are self-sufficient now. They've got big, nice, deep bowls where water will collect, probably half-gallon bowls where water will collect in each of them, some of them full gallons. And I planted 7 here, so they should really dominate this area, and I won't have to mow it like that part. Here we have Indian blanket on the corner right there, and then Mexican bush sage, and Mexican oregano, and Pride of Barbados. So this is kind of a little hell strip, and what I was trying to do was, if you see people come down this road, was they're turning this corner, they're going to look at this area. So if I could make it showy enough, then I could really add a lot of curb appeal to the house. So I've got some stuff that really packs a punch. The summer garden, Esperanza and Pride of Barbados, my favorite summer combo. I mean, hey guys, this is a 2nd-year garden. Once this turns into a 4th-year garden, this stuff is really going to pop. You can already see it's starting to come out here. They're starting to come out, look at that. And there's some over there. They're starting to come. Give it like 5 days, and this garden is just gonna pop. I've got Mexican oregano here that kind of holds down the underside and makes sure no weeds grow in underneath these guys. Mexican bush sage holds this border big time against the Bermuda. Bermuda's always trying to get in there, but the Mexican bush sage is thick enough now. It's the 2nd year, and you can see 3 Mexican oreganos. That one looks pretty sad. And there's 3 of these, only 3 of these guys in here, although I think I'm going to let 4, maybe 5 grow. This is Mexican mint marigold, and again, I needed something to hold the border here, keep back the grasses and the Bermuda. You can see the Bermuda's coming in right there. I need that guy to get big so he just crowds it out, but it's going to take a couple years. So I've got 3 Mexican mint marigolds here, and they add a nice little color pop. So this is, and again, more Indian blanket over here. So this is the garden, and after several years, it is looking very good.